With Avatar, Fire and Ash dropping in a few months, I thought, what better time than right now to revisit Avatar? To see what James Cameron did that made the most successful film in the history of film. A film that is incredibly flawed from top to bottom. It doesn't come close to any of James Cameron's most iconic pieces of media. But even with all of its flaws, it's such an achievement that even years later, it is still a decent watch. So we are going to dive deep into Avatar, the story, the characters, and the world of the biggest film of all time. The story of Avatar is one of the most controversial parts about this film. Not in the sense that it's a bad story, but in a way where you have seen this done before. While some can tell you it's a great story, there is just as many that say it's average. The story of Avatar focuses on Jake Sully, a former Marine who replaces his dead brother on a trip to Pandora. He then gets trained by the Na'vi clan and falls in love with Neytiri. While working with the Sky People, he must decide where his skills belong, his own race or the Na'vi. Does that story sound familiar? Yes, because we have seen it done before in other films. There are interesting ideas in this story, but it tends to be an issue some people have with it, because the story isn't anything original. Avatar takes inspiration from other films, such as Dances with Wolves or Pocahontas. It's just those films, but with big blue aliens. But does it ruin the film? No, it doesn't. For some reason, people just expect films to be ultra original works, but that's just not the case at all. Films have been doing this for literally decades. We have seen so many reboots or original works that take inspiration from other films. In general, this is not a bad thing. There are so many films that are basically the same exact film, like the Lego movie and the Mario movie are the same film. Or stuff that takes inspiration from forms of literature. Like Treasure Planet, it's just Treasure Island. So if Avatar catches heat, why don't these? Well, frankly, I don't understand why people critique Avatar based on this of all things. Because what makes Avatar stand out from its inspiration is its execution. Yes, Avatar is Dances with Wolves, but it's in space. So the fact this is the main reason so many people hate Avatar, just why? Seriously, if you're one of these people, tell me. I just don't get it. Don't get it twisted, the story of this film absolutely has issues, but saying this story is bad because it takes inspiration from other films is such a lame way to criticize art. If you have real problems, that's fine, but at least make a valid argument. Saying it's bad because it takes inspiration from other films is just lazy. Especially when I bet you have done the same thing in some way, whether it's in the form of a school paper or anything else. But again, I'm not sitting here acting like this story is a masterclass in storytelling. So let's put aside the whole story ideas aside, and move on to what this film is trying to do. Let's get into the details of this story alone. I will be totally honest with you guys, there are some things in the story I just do not remember. The basics are pretty simple, but in the terms of what I remember, it's not a big list. Because with the story being paper thin, it can be forgettable. That's the thing with this story, it can be very safe. I would be shocked if someone watched Avatar and didn't forget all of it the next day. It is just a basic story. Be honest, if you watch this, tell me what you remember. Please, my ears are open. The plot does have intrigue though. It's not like a boring story by any means. Even though it can be predictable, you can at least understand what's going on, so you as the viewer become invested to see where it all goes. Because there is stuff happening for a reason, it does feel natural. But then there is the dialogue. And this is where a lot of the film goes down for me. When the Na'vi are talking about the way of Pandora, it works. There is also a lot of social commentary throughout the film. Now, it isn't like a She-Hulk or anything because the story does make sense for what it's trying to tell. It can get preachy, but it works well enough. We see this in how the Na'vi view the environment, but it's not limited to that. This is also demonstrated in how the corporate greed is run by the Sky People. Like they're literally trying to go and find unobtainium for energy. It is very greedy all the way through. With that in mind, it can work really well. Mainly the themes are on protecting the planet, but at times it can lack in its nuance. Almost to the point where it lacks a lot of its depth. It's a double-edged sword scenario. Look, Avatar's story is not terrible by any means. Its problems don't lie in the fact it takes inspiration from other stories like a lot of people say. Its issues lie in how fundamentally forgettable it is, leading to arguably this film's biggest issue. Now, you would think that if this story was lacking, the characters would be better, right? Wrong. Well, sort of. Because these characters are one-dimensional at best. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Even outside of that, some of these characters in this film, their arcs just feel incomplete, mainly around the side characters, and even the main ones are pretty basic at best. It doesn't help with this story being told. This is the problem with the characters because of its forgettable story, in that you get characters that are just boring. There are just multiple characters that I can't even remember, mainly the scientists. That's the issue with the characters, they don't have a lot of depth. So let's get into the main character of the film. Let's talk about Jake Sully. I think this character is actually a decent character. He's pretty likable and you understand why he is doing what he's doing. Performance wise, I do think it is pretty weak. Sam Worthington did an average job here. I think it was really his scenes with the Na'vi that really sold his performance. However, there are other aspects I like more about this character. One thing I love about this character is he is essentially the fish out of water in this situation. Jake is a former Marine, but he has no idea what he is doing at all. The scientists treat him like a moron, but it goes beyond that. With the Na'vi, they treat him the same way. On both sides, he's exactly the fish out of water. Everything is new to him. We also see the military side through Quaritch. Since he has a military background, it totally makes sense why the two would get along at the start. Jake understands Quaritch because they are both from the military. I do love the scene where they both discuss what to do with the Na'vi, because you see both sides, and by the end where he joins the Na'vi, it's so effective. Jake is questioning what side he should go on throughout the entire film. It's his arc that is the most satisfying. He realizes that what the Sky people are doing is just wrong. So when he joins the Na'vi, it's way more conclusive. The character has come a long way, even though I like other characters more, such as Neytiri. So let's talk about Neytiri. Her character is easily the best part of this film to me. Her relationship with Jake is also great given the actor's chemistry, not to mention the journey that happens along the way. Zoe Saldana gives a great performance here. Her performance is so layered and you can tell there is real emotion coming from this character. Despite being in a CG suit, it does feel real. You connect with this character and the performance along the way. To contrast what Quaritch did for Jake, it is basically the exact opposite. Where he feels at home with the military, he isn't sure if he belongs here. He only shows due to wanting to know more about the Na'vi, lying to gain their trust. Neytiri teaches Jake the way of their clan and how they operate. He teaches him how to ride their animals, how to kill, how to fly, how to use their tails. She teaches him everything. The two also fall in love, so when she finds out what Jake has done, she freaks out. When the final battle happens, it's such a powerful moment for her as a character. We see her going from someone training Jake to someone who can lead her people. It's a great character arc. But outside of Jake and Neytiri, the rest of the characters I barely remember. I've seen this movie dozens of times and I still have no memory of some of them. Like I said with the scientists, but also some of the Na'vi too, this is the issue as some of the characters are undercooked. The stereotypes around these characters as well are just funny to me. Like Quaritch literally is just a hardened, corny military man. Stephen Lang is having a ball with this role, but in this film specifically, his character is pretty standard military general. There isn't much depth or nuance to this character. He does improve later on, but in this film, he is basic. Then there is the corporate dude played by Frank from Friends. He is basic, he is one-dimensional, he is nothing more than a money-hungry asshole. You don't feel intimidated by him at all. If anything, he is just there for a comic relief. Now, like I said, a lot of these characters get improved later on in The Way of Water, which I will discuss in a future video, but I am waiting for the re-release. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. But ultimately, the characters are just very hit and miss. The world of Avatar is something no one can deny is what makes this film work so well. The main reason you watch this film isn't for the story or even the characters. It's the world of Pandora. The beauty of everything in this film comes to life. James Cameron is simply one of the best directors of all time. Regardless of your thoughts about him as a person, this man is a visionary like no other. Just watch Aliens, Terminator, Titanic, or anything he has done. This man is a certified genius. Recently, I watched a lot of his films, including Titanic for the first time. Yes, I know, I am late, but I thought it was peak. But one of that film's strongest suits was both its story and characters. When you get to the point where the Titanic splits in half and people who survived look at it in terror, you don't need any dialogue. You can piece the terror together visually. Yes, he may say some dumb stuff from time to time, but one thing he has always nailed was bringing so many iconic worlds to life. He is truly a visual and world building genius. In terms of that alone, that is where Avatar thrives best. Titanic is the exact opposite of Avatar. Its strongest weapons are the relationships we witnessed, but Avatar's strongest suit is the world you get to witness. I don't think it's a debatable aspect of this film. I think one thing we all can agree on is how amazing this world is. The lore around this world is just insane. The plant life, the animals, the trees, or anything in this world just has so many interesting details that only a man like Jim Cameron could come up with. That is the stroke of a passion project. The biggest attraction to Avatar is in one word: escapism. Why do you think Avatar is the highest grossing film of all time? There are many reasons as to why, but I firmly believe escapism is one of them. What do you think of when you think of escapism? You think of a film that entertains you beyond belief. Something that helps you forget about your life for a couple hours. Just losing yourself in a great story and falling in love with these characters. That is Avatar in a nutshell. This story may be basic and some of the characters do absolutely have issues, but what makes it work was never the story or the characters. It was the ultimate escapism experience. We have seen big spectacle films do the same thing, do not get that twisted. But what Avatar did at the time was just unseen before. It was a film meant to transport you into another world. Not a story meant to blow you away. Just a film to entertain you. And to say it failed at that would just be a flat out lie. Then there is the CGI, which is still some of the best visual effects to this day. What this film manages to do is simply incredible. It is truly a visual masterpiece. The fact it gets better is scary and really impressive. It is some of the most groundbreaking use of motion capture you will ever see. Yeah, there were other films that did motion capture before this. Cameron even said that he was inspired by Peter Jackson from what he did with Lord of the Rings and King Kong. But at the time, this was just something truly special. The way they blended photorealism with motion capture was just incredible. The Na'vi looked real and felt real. It only gets better as time goes on. The visuals surely help with the 3D because of how this film was shot. James Cameron edited the film himself along with other people. It is a film built for IMAX 3D that just makes the way the visuals are done even better. The visuals now are even more immersive to the point you believe it even more. The world building alone is some of James Cameron's best. From the first shot of Pandora, you see so much of the world front and center. Even off the latest shot at a truck with arrows all over the wheels. The world is just so inviting from the very beginning. Not that the lore is so complex that it's hard to follow or anything. You would think that this world would have some of that, but in fact it's the exact opposite. It can easily get into even with all the weirdness of it. You don't need to be the biggest know-it-all, like me, to know it. It is simple to follow. This film didn't need to build its world like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. It just needed to build its world well enough for audiences to understand what was happening. Its world builds in a simple manner, but it still works well enough so that James Cameron can transfer us into his biggest passion project yet. Around the time Avatar: The Way of Water came out, James Cameron did a GQ interview in that he said he almost bailed on being a filmmaker but kept on going because of Avatar. He got the idea from a dream and always wanted to make it. This was truly his passion project. James Cameron's Avatar may have some issues with its story and characters, but even then there are still a lot of upsides to them. But the way its story is presented in its world makes it the ultimate escapist experience. It's a flawed passion project meant for us to escape into this world. A beautiful mess of a story that is nothing new with certain basic characters, but visuals and world building that make it so worth it each time. Avatar is the ultimate theater experience. It's no surprise to me that it still is to this day the biggest film of all time. So guys, with everything out of the way, the answer is now for you guys. What are your thoughts on Avatar? Are you someone who loves it or hates it? And how excited are you for Avatar: Fire and Ash? We got a lot of Avatar content, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, take care.